there, Banditos! Thank you again for hanging out with us. We're sure glad you could join us. As always, it's that time of week again where we fling open the doors of your local comic book shop and talk to your favorite comic book creators of yesterday and today. But before we get to the goodness, let's get the introductions out of the way. I am Joe Marcello.
I'm Warren Phillips.
I'm Mike Farah.
And this week, we're bringing you another home run. It's Mike on the mic, everyone, and it's his interview with comic book royalty, a returning guest. Another one. Guys, the momentum is it's just chugging along, man. We have people coming back who actually like talking to us. So that being said, we're bringing you Mike's interview with Jimmy Palmiotti. Now, you may know Jimmy from a previous episode of the Dollar Bin Bandits, but more importantly, from his run on Harley Quinn, which was just amazing. Yeah, he's done amazing work over the years, and I consider him comic book royalty.
Yeah, I remember last time we spoke a little about his creation with Joe Quesada Ash. I know, Mike, you were able to get a little more into it this episode, so I couldn't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah, Jimmy is a fantastic conversationalist, as we all know, great storyteller. And we talked about his new Kickstarter, which has a few more days as of this recording to go. So definitely get in on that. It is called Painkiller Jane, Beautiful Killers. And we get into everything about that character. We get into everything about this project, lots of alternative covers, unlocking all kinds of extras for those that back the project. And, we get into the pros and cons of Kickstarter. What are the differences? What's good, what's bad for creators that do it this way rather than the major publishers. We get into his storytelling, where he gets, these stories, all kinds of stuff. So I love doing it. I hope you love hearing it. This is Jimmy Palmiotti. So, we have you on tonight because we always love to talk to you, but of course you are in the middle of and in the waning days actually of your new Kickstarter, which is a Painkiller Jane 2-issue series called Beautiful Killers. Mm-hmm. And obviously, you have history with the character, co-creator of it, and it's a new adventure for this particular character, but give us a sales pitch. What is this story about, and why are you telling it now?
Well, okay. This story is a continuing story. So the last Painkiller Jane Kickstarter I did found Jane and her girlfriend Azura in Italy, tracking down, pretty much trying to deliver a girl to her grandfather in Sicily for the FBI, and it turns out that she turned out to be an FBI agent and not the granddaughter of the mobster she was returning to. She kills the guy, and Jane and her girlfriend stay in Europe to kind of, spend their money and relax and have a vacation, but they're both put on a hit list. And so while they're vacationing, it takes them from Sicily all the way up to Venice. While they were on vacation, they get bored, and Azura is like a hired killer, so she takes on a couple of gigs in Venice to keep the girls busy. Meanwhile, they're being tracked by another guy that's taken on the account, the gig to get rid of them. So it's a little cat and mouse stuff. It's kind of fun. It's not for kids. There's it's an adult comic because there's nudity, there's a sex club scene in it, there's excessive violence, crazy language, and even we even have a dream sequence that was done by Peach. How do you say her last name? Momoto? Peach. Peach actually painted a whole dream sequence for us in one of the books. So it's got a lot to it, and it's a big adventure. We broke it into 2 parts so we can have some fun, having some different covers. And I'm kind of like a comic collector, so I was thinking trade book, and then I was like, nah, let's just break it into 2 comics. I'm going to charge the same thing anyway. It's funny because people say they want to buy trades, but every time I throw it out there, people are like, well, we like single issues first. I'm like, okay. But we kickstarted it, and the character was created by Joe Quesada and I way back in the 90s. And this is the first time in a long time I was able to get Joe to do a cover for the book. So we have a Joe Quesada cover. And even in our add-ons, we have like an edition of, we did 125 black and white art covers for Joe. So you could actually buy that too if you back the Kickstarter. But we kind of put this package together. I have Juan Santa Cruz is my artist on it. And I've worked with Juan on Jane a whole bunch of times. So he's one of my regular artists. And again, we have Peach doing a dream sequence in there that's pretty crazy. And it's just a lot of fun. I mean, like I said, if I can get to do one Jane book a year, I'd be a very happy man. And that's what I'm shooting for. I did one last year, doing one this year. We got a lot of great covers by everyone from Joe Linsner, Joe Quesada. We got Ben Caldwell. We got a whole bunch. We got some photo covers with, and we got a lot of things going on. So you could buy the basic books. Peach did a cover for us as well on it. But if you go to a campaign, you can kind of pick and choose what you want. And I like to give some variety. Again, I'm a comic collector, so I kind of aimed it towards people like me who like to have some variety. And it's a fun time. I mean, the character's she's a fun character. She's been around since '94, which is probably around when you were born, I'm guessing.
No, well, you compliment me.
Okay.
I was at least more than a decade before that, but
okay, 84. All right. Well,
yeah, 94 was kind of the heyday of collecting, actually.
Right. Well, that's when we Joe and I did Ash and Painkiller Jane, and then we got distracted with that Marvel Knights thing afterwards. But it was a good time for comics, and I like to keep the character alive. I mean, I every couple of years I do a book. I mean, lately I've been doing one a year, but before that I was able to do a series here. We did one for Marvel, and then we did one for Dynamite, and then of course before that was the Event Comics. We did crossovers, and it was a TV show, and it was an odd 2-hour movie that was separate from the TV show. So Jane's had a lot of life. Like the characters, you can't keep her down. It keeps coming at you.
You answered a whole bunch of follow-up questions, but I'll dive deeper into them.
Okay.
And the character of Painkiller Jane, as you said, you keep coming back to her.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a vested interest there, and really fascinating character. But what in particular gets you jazzed about the Painkiller Jane projects in particular? She's one of the few characters where on the surface she's one thing. And you dig a little deeper, she's another. And I relate to her character the most out of all the characters I write. I kind of relate to her attitudes and the way she feels about life, but I can't be like that in real life because I'd be in jail or it'd be a complete disaster. But she definitely is the character. When Joe and I did Ash and Painkiller Jane, like I always felt like Ash was more modeled towards Joe and Jane was modeled towards me. And we were able to write the characters that way. But I find she's an interesting character. She's also kind of says what's on her mind and has to deal with the fallout of it a lot. And so past all the guns blazing and the violence and the fact that it's very hard to kill her, she kind of heals. She has that healing power type of thing, but it's not like Wolverine. It takes a long time for her to heal. But as I've been telling the stories, that power is slowly diminishing as well. So I think eventually we're going to get to the point where she doesn't have it anymore. To make her more vulnerable?
Well, I think make her that she has to start thinking a little more before she jumps into something. And again, it's like a slow burn for me. I've been writing the character for many years, and I'm so happy that people keep supporting it. Now, my only problem with the Kickstarters is it's hard to get any press on a Kickstarter unless you have a celebrity attached these days. And it's really tough because I reached out to a bunch of different news things and everything, and they were like, oh, it's another Kickstarter. I'm like, okay, so is the new issue of Superman or the 11 issues of Batman coming out this month. It's just some more Batman. but it's kind of like it's kind of gotten a little tougher to get the word out, because my biggest problem happens when, after the Kickstarter is done, I have 300 people asking me, when are you going to do the Kickstarter? Or I missed it. How did I miss it? I didn't know it was happening. And my social media, although it reaches out, it doesn't reach out enough, I guess. So I always have to deal with that, and that's part of Kickstarters. But this one's been doing good so far. And we just hit one of our stretch goals where everybody gets a print by Amanda Kahn. Amanda did a piece that's going to be a print. So everyone who backs the physical levels actually gets the comic size print that Amanda drew and I colored. And then the next year, I think we hit 5 stretch goals already. 6th one is stickers, is the next one, which people love stickers. I don't get it.
Perennial favorites.
I don't get it, but everybody loves them. But we have, so far, even if you back it right now, you get the 2 comics, you get the 2 digitals. You also get 2 stretch goal books that they're both mystery ones. So when you get them, you'll see them. We're not going to tell you what they are, but you're going to get a link for 4 PDFs of 4 books, even if you just back the regular 1 edition, or even if you back just the digital edition of the 1 book. Let's say it's $7, you're going to get 4 digital books for the price of
Nice.
the price of the 1. So yeah, so I'm trying to make it grabbable, because we know how expensive postage is overseas.
Yep.
And the digital thing is becoming more and more of a thing for people to support it, because they don't have the money. So the digital is the easy way to get in and be part of it.
Yeah. Opens it up to a wider audience.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Absolutely.
You talked a lot about, having done Kickstarter and some of maybe the cons of, that format, especially now, getting press and really having to hustle. But what would you say are the advantages? Because you've done quite a lot of them, and the pros, especially compared to, traditional publishers, whether that's, the big
the advantages,
the
advantages start with content, right? I write the book as if nobody can tell me what to do. So I'm an adult. I like nudity in my books. Jane, I like nudity. I like excessive violence. I like fun. I like to have there's a fun theme, because so nobody's telling me, oh, it's a little too this or it's a little too that. I'm writing it exactly the way I see it. I'm writing it exactly with the Kickstarter. I'm writing it for the audience that buys it, and they let me know what they like in the book. The thing with the Kickstarter is I'm communicating directly with the people that support me, that buy the book. So I do, with 21 under my belt right now, I do have an idea of what people are looking for. It's why I have a lot of the guest covers, because some people are always looking for collectors things. And we did one called Pop Kill that I did Adam Hughes cover on it. And, that cover is like the one we offered on a Kickstarter is over $1,000 right now. It's like so crazy, but people forget with the Kickstarter is like, for everything I print, there's a limited number. So we don't go back to press and make more of them. We just print what's ordered. We print to order. So we have some things like Amanda's limited covers. If only 100 people buy it, there's only 100 of those books. And for a comic collector, my Kickstarters are really good, because some of the books are only 30 or 40 copies. And we only print, if it's 30 copies, we only print like 50, because we need to, in case mail screws up. Or we have to have the extras, but a lot of them at the time we have package issues, or I get the books from the printer and they're not in perfect shape. Since I am one of those guys that likes a perfect comic, I kind of look at every book and make sure before I actually, and it's me and my buddy Patrick, we sit there and board and put backing boards and bags and COAs in every single book we do by hand and tape them up. So I look at every single book. So I do overorder, but it's only because I'm a quality nut. And I want my guys, if they get the book and want to CGC it, I want to make sure they have a 9.8 or 9.6. I just want to make sure it's perfect. Again, so this gives me the chance to be insane and pack things the way I see them. it gives me a way to, with the Kickstarter, everybody that backs it can communicate with me. So they ask me questions and I answer them that day. And I've done 21. I've never not delivered on time in the 21 Kickstarters. I've always delivered. Everyone's got everything. I do not have a single person that was a backer that has any issue with me. Meaning, even the ones that I had issues with, I would communicate with them. I'd call them or we'd talk online. We'd settle up. We'd figure out something. And even the ones that got lost in New Zealand, I talked to the guy and we made sure we sent it registered mail because somebody kept stealing his mail. So we go above and beyond with everyone because I think I think the pro and the con at the same time is my reputation is at stake with this stuff. And so that's a pro and a con, right? Because I have to watch everything, but I'm so proud to be able to give everybody exactly what they're expecting. And again, with Kickstarter, the con is that other people might not deliver their projects. They might do a crappy job, all that kind of stuff. And that hurts me because I have people that still go to me, well, I never got my book from this and that, this person, and it's been 2 years. And I always go, I understand that. That's why you're coming to my store instead of shopping at their store.
Yeah.
At my store, you get everything you want. Plus I make sure extra care. I pack everything myself. If it's not me, it's Patrick. We sit with Amanda's art book. We literally took 3 weeks to pack 1,500 boxes and send them out. And, she only got like 12 left to draw because she ones that people had to draw. So she does them a little at a time. But other than that, we got every one of them. Everybody got their books and on time, even some of them earlier than they thought, because I tend to jump the gun with the printer. As soon as the Kickstarter is done, I call them up and say, all right, that's the number. So there are pros and cons, but the good news is, and again, it's funny, at Planet Comic Con, I had a guy ask me, it's more expensive to back your Kickstarters than to buy your books from DC or Marvel. And I told them, I said, well, DC and Marvel, I'm not doing anything for them right now. They kind of ghosted me with COVID. They kind of never called Amanda and I again, other than for covers. And we're not doing anything for them. And I said, look, if I do 3 Kickstarters a year, trust me, it's a lot cheaper than when you were buying all my books. And it came out, because I would literally put out 2 or 3 books a month when I was on a roll. But you're getting a different product. My books look better than theirs. My books are printed better than theirs. I have spot varnish. I go with thicker paper. I go with an actual cover stock. When you look at a Marvel comic, the actual cover stock is the same as the interior stock. And that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it should be a little thicker.
Right.
Like I pointed to a couple of pounds thicker. So those are the pros and cons, but so far so good. I have a couple more planned for the year, after Jane. But I don't do them till I pretty much deliver the last one. That's my thing. Yeah.
Well, as a fan and a Kickstarter backer, I can say that we certainly appreciate the painstaking work that you put into it.
Yeah.
And it shows that not only are you obviously a creator, but you're a fan first, and what we want to see on the receiving end.
Right.
If you were to have backed something that, what we want to see and are trying your hardest to deliver that. And I think do.
Yeah, I back like around 30, 40 a year at least. And when I get the packages, I always look at them. I always look at how they send it to me. And a lot of times I'm like, oh, okay, they just threw it in a box and that was it. There's no thought to it. I open it up and things fall out of it, and I'm like, oh, okay. But like, I feel like there's no connection, Yeah. And I used to, when I first started, I put a note in each thing and signed it. And I realized, okay, that's just an insane person now. And I'm like, okay, so I talk in the books, I write a little bit in the books. And, I've learned to fine tune it. And people tell me although they like the note, I can put it in the book. I do things like photo credits, which nobody does really, I like to have a photo of everyone that worked on the book. Because I'm also that guy that likes to know what the people look like. We used to have Wizard magazine.
Right.
That did that. And if you look now, I don't know if you notice it, when you read articles online, they don't have the photo of the creators that much. It's always the art
It's the
or
work.
the cover,
Yeah.
but not the people. And I got to tell you, when I was younger, like I loved that I knew who Stan was and Jack was, and I learned what Walt Simonson looked like. So when I saw him at a con, I was like, there he is. And
Yeah.
I love that about seeing the pictures of the people. And it was a treat when I was a kid when Stan would do one of those bullpen things where it had everybody in the bullpen standing around. And I was like, oh, that's what Barry Smith looks like. I'm like, I never knew that. But we kind of lost that a little bit because with computers, it's funny because you see less and less. The only time you do see them is when a convention lists people and you see
Right.
the photos. But a lot of times they have the comic character there instead of a person. And I just think we're in a business where we're fans, and I'm a fan of a lot of artists. Like, I look around my room, I have Rich Corbett and Alex Toth and Bernie Wrightson and Darwin cookbooks, and and these people I always wanted to know what they look like and see them. And so with our books, everyone that works on the book, from the letterer to the colorist to the editor to the whatever, they get a photo, a biography in there. I put it in. We swap out the photos once in a while for fun, but for me, it's like another way of getting to know the people that do the books for you.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, and all this is great for the fan, and also, of course, savvy business. I mean, you give a product that people want, and in a format and with care that
Right.
people are looking for, that they give their own books and other collectible objects. You're going to have them coming back, and
Yeah.
and that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to have people enjoy the stuff, be able to collect it, and want to come back for the next one.
I started, when I was young, I wanted to be a comic book artist, and then went to high school for it. But I went into advertising for 10 years, and I did very well. But I wasn't happy, if that makes any sense. And I made a lot of money, and I was working all the time, but I wasn't happy. And I wanted to get back into comics. And I realized that it's such a primal thing. Like, I just want to create. And part of it is I want to entertain. And it's funny, when I see a movie that's great, like you sit in the theater, like, oh my God, that was so great. My first thought is, how satisfied those guys must be that made it and acted it. Like, how satisfied that they got a guy like me to sit there and be completely absorbed in their world for 2 hours. Like, how cool is that? Or I read a great book and I think, man, how this person observed the world around them and made me really feel like I was there. And it comes down to a basic, like, I just want to entertain. I want people to enjoy an experience, and I want to be one of the people that gives that to people, because it's really, if you think retrospectively, a lot of guys tell me, oh, they want to do stuff to be famous, they want to do that and all that kind of shit, and I'm just like, fame means nothing to me except if it can make me move the meter to do my next book, but it's not if you want to be famous, do something else. Comics we have the smallest audience of any kind of entertainment. When I wrote video games, and my audience was 10 times bigger, but they didn't give a crap who I was.
Right.
Like I worked on Injustice, and nobody ever says Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray's Injustice. Comics are one of the few things where the people that read them actually look at the credits. We watch movies and we see director and actors, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the most important credit there is always the writer for me, because that's like, if the writing sucks, the whole movie sucks. If the writing's brilliant, even a terrible director will be able to get a story across on some level. So I think the comic medium for me has always been about getting super close and intimate with creators. I'm seeing their work. They start with a blank page and they create these worlds that I'm absorbed in. And like I said, I'm jealous whenever anybody's comic gets adapted, because I think that's so cool. I can't wait to see I remember when Garth was doing The Boys and then they sold it, and I was like, we would laugh. I'd go, Garth, how the hell are they going to do this show? Like, how are they going to do this? And then we watch it and I'm like, oh my God, like, another artist came in and did his version of it, and it worked out great,
Yeah.
So I think it's always been like a very primal thing for me about just wanting to make people happy and do things for them and entertain them. So
And
for
comic
me,
fans are-
Kickstarter is my way of doing it without having the middleman jump in all the time and tell me that oh, you can't have the character do that, or you can't do this. That's been my world for the past 10 years. A lot of editors telling me you've gone too far.
No
and that's
such thing on
frustrating.
Kickstarter.
What's that?
I said no such thing on Kickstarter.
No, I do stuff in the Kickstarters I'm like almost embarrassed about, but I laugh and I'm like, well, my artist is drawing it and he's not screaming, so that's good,
Yeah. Well, comic fans, I find, are the most passionate, which, rubs both ways. But
Yes.
when you get the good part of that is, that they are so involved in the art form and want to know who did it and why and how storylines play out. And so, yeah, the positive side of the coin is that,
Right.
You get that sort of adulation, not for yourself necessarily, but for your creations. And
Right.
It's probably more powerful than, I would say, when you have something that is on a movie or a video game where there are just so many more people, but it's just not as concentrated, that sort of fandom,
Well, like cosplay is interesting, right? Because I remember I was in Barcelona, Spain, and I was there with Amanda and Jordy Bernay because he was doing Jonah Hex at the time for me. And a girl came up to me dressed like Painkiller Jane, and you couldn't wipe that smile off my face for the whole day. I mean, she did a fantastic suit, and then she took photos with me, and and I was thinking like, wow, like somebody like actually took the time to do that. And then when we were working on Harley Quinn, it was insane, right? Because when we were doing Harley Quinn, all of a sudden we'd go to San Diego Comic-Con and there'd be 300 Harley Quinns. Picture me and Amanda and 300 girls dressed as different kinds of Harley Quinn. And it's like the ultimate, it's so cool, and they're having so much fun. And all they want for us is to do is look at them and validate them and tell them they look great, which we did. We told every single one of them they looked amazing, and we fussed over them for hours. And and it's like we all walked out after that, and I'm like, that was amazing, So it does have a lot of power. I mean, our what we do, has it means something. Even though it's entertainment, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And you're right, the pros and cons are the passion, because the passion can go the other way. I had a death threat last week that I had to report online. Somebody said they're going to murder me, and they didn't say why. They just posted it, and I had to report them. And Twitter took down their page right away, and I guess they took care of it. They just told me it's being taken care of. And, I would have probably wanted to know why, although I saw a lot of Power Girl on his page before they deleted it. And I was like, well, I wrote Power Girl 11 years ago and he's still mad. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I have no idea why, but, it's passion in the wrong way,
Yep.
If you don't like something of mine, I always tell people, I thank you for buying it. And, there's a lot of other stuff you should try. I like this guy's book. I like that guy. Give that one a shot.
Right.
It happens. It's like an actor. You watch movies. Sometimes they're great. Sometimes the movie's not great, but they're good. And, again, I love the passion, and 99.9% of it is positive. But I find if you're looking for negative, you're going to find a lot. And I don't look for it. I kind of spend time with the positive people more than I do the negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as well you should. Why?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? I think there's just so much, again, so much more great engagement you can have with the positive people. And
yeah,
for the most part, you ignore the negative. I mean, every once in a while, I'm sure there's some well-argued, valid criticism or whatever, but that's usually not going to be on Twitter or anything like that. That will be somewhere else, and you'll be like, okay, that person has a point. But
yeah, even on Twitter, if they make a good point, the whole secret to me is if you're polite,
yeah,
then I'll talk to you all day. But if you start name calling or attacking the people following me, then I block you. You know, it's simple as that. I feel like you can have a conversation without resorting to name calling. You know, I do every day with people I meet in stores. I don't name call. I approach them in a positive way. And if they're negative or down or they're having a terrible day, I can kind of get the vibe. I don't take it personally. I figure they got some weight on their shoulders in their life. Something's happening in their life. And, I have to kind of empathy is a lot better tool than most people think,
Yeah. Agreed. Well, let's move back to some of your work. I mean, I have one more question on Painkiller Jane, which
Sure.
is, looking back on her backstory and some of the previous work you've done she's done a lot of crossovers, right?
Yes.
What do you think makes her such a good character to pair up with other characters? What makes those successful, those crossovers?
She's simple. She's a simple character for another writer to grab. She's driven. She's got attitude. She's very well defined in the book she's in. And then for somebody that's never read the book and read one issue, they kind of get her drive, and it's easy for them to write her. That's why I was able to get a lot of Painkiller Jane crossovers, because I would have people read the book and go, oh, okay, I can work with this. I get it. She's this, and great. I know somebody just like that. So when the character's easy to grab, Batman's easy to grab.
Yep.
Okay. Green Lantern is tough for me to grab. Flash is kind of tough for me to grab in a way, because it's a guy that runs fast. I get that part, but how much, I don't really know him, and it's so complicated. The history of the character is so complicated. Same thing with Green Lantern. It's like 400 Green Lanterns, and people go, well, which Green Lantern? Is it Hal Jordan or is it this guy? There's one Painkiller Jane. There's one, and it's an easy, and when you have that, it's easy to do crossovers. We did a Painkiller Jane Hellboy, and basically the two of them were curmudgeons, and it was just kind of a fun story to do, So again, it's an easy character grab. I think that's what makes it easy for crossovers.
Yeah, that makes sense. And she doesn't have a lot of baggage. I mean, she has plenty of stories, but it's not like there's so much backstory that you would even have to work it into any kind of crossover.
No, because she's not a person driven by her past.
Yeah.
Jane lives for today and tomorrow. So I don't visit her past too often. If it comes up, it's a throwaway line or two, but she is not Bruce Wayne dissecting his parents being killed that night from 1,000 different angles. She's not that. She's about where she is at that moment. And Jane is probably the most present character I've ever written, to the point where it gets her in trouble because she's in the moment all the time. But that's on purpose. That was a choice we made with the character. Some characters, like Jonah Hex was another character that lived in the moment. He didn't live in his past because he wouldn't be able to function if he did. And he didn't worry about the future because he just went wherever the road took him. So Jonah was always in the present, where people around him were swirling in the past and the future. And he was always that stable, character. And we had to do that with Harley. When we took over Harley, I pushed her out of, saying she's not in a relationship that's abusive. She wants a new life. She wants to start a new life. She wants to move on. So much so, Amanda and I gave her own supporting cast, because you can't move on if you keep going, hanging out in Gotham with all the Batman villains. And so for 5 years, we took Harley out of Gotham and built up a character. And the minute we left, they put her right back in Gotham. So, I understood with Harley, Amanda understood with Harley, why we needed to do that, because nobody knew the character before that except for the animation. But in the comics, it wasn't. Every time she was written in the comics, somebody wrote her differently. And that's a problem when you're trying to establish a staple character, is to have all these different voices on one character. There's no stability. Harley was a tough character to write before we took her on, because there was a Harley in the video game, Harley in the comic, and then a Harley in the animated show, and they were all three different. So when we took her on, we made a deal with DC. It was Dan DiDio. I said, if we're going to do this, you can't put Harley in any other books while we work on it. So for those years, Harley was never a guest star in other books unless we did it. So she had a consistent voice. But once we left, they threw her in everything. And
I mean, that's especially unfortunate because what you did was you provided a foundation for Harley. You sort of consolidated the different character traits from the different versions and then gave her a foundation that anybody beyond you and Amanda could build on.
Yes.
And then they just kind of wrecked the whole thing and started over, or just
well, people came in and thought they knew better than us, and they wrote the character they wanted to see. So she became a sex kitten with Ivy. They kind of became a couple, which we never did. We moonlighted it all the way.
Yeah,
moonlighting. Never sealed the deal.
Right.
Because it loses a little bit of charm. But they did that right away. And then when they did the animated show, they set it right back in Gotham. And I said, okay, but she's going to become a secondary character in her own show. And if you watch the cartoon, I love the cartoon, but it is, even though it revolves around her, it's about all the other characters.
Yeah.
And even when we saw the Birds of Prey movie being made, which took a lot of stuff from our books, but for some reason, they knew better, and they had to put all these other characters in it.
Yeah.
And my God, you have Margot Robbie playing Harley Quinn. You can't write a solo adventure with Margot Robbie where it's interesting for 2 hours, for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. And what happens is every time you add all the other stuff, it waters her down.
Right.
So Birds of Prey, although I loved it, I wish all the other characters were somewhere else. Because I wanted to see her get on her own and deal with everything. If you look at the main story in Birds of Prey, it could have been just Harley Quinn.
Sure.
Easily.
And it damages the other characters too, because then they're fighting for screen time and development on a movie that's not even theirs, really.
I mean, if Margot Robbie ever does another movie of Harley, she has to do it solo like the Joker. She just has to do Harley Quinn. That's it. And I guarantee it'll be a big hit, because somebody with a lot of focus will understand that it's about her journey and not 15 other throwaway stories going on. But I don't make movies, so what do I know?
Yeah, neither do I. We just, backseat quarterbacking. Or
hey, I have this too. I wanted to show you. If we don't get to talk about it, let me see if I get it in focus. This wonderful camera I have. It's basically Blondie.
Oh, nice.
Against all odds. But let me see if I put it in front of my face, it might be in focus.
Yeah, I keep getting either the face or the title. It's tough to get both.
Well, it came out from Z2 Comics, and Amanda and I worked with Chris Starr and Deborah Harry and the group to write this little biography of like when Debbie met Chris, and then they formed the band. And there's a lot more art in there, but that just came out too. We worked on it last year, and it just came out now. So something else we did.
Did that spark anything in you for sort of nonfiction kind of work?
I wanted to join the band. No, I've been a fan of Blondie. When I was so I'm older, and when I was in senior in high school and first year in college, I would go see. I'd go down to the Village. I lived in New York. I'd go down to CBGB's. I would see them, Talking Heads, Stray Cats, B-52s, a lot of like Television, Lou Reed, all those kind of things. Those were like my bands. I went Wall of Voodoo. I'm thinking of all the bands I've seen at Devo a couple of times. I loved seeing Devo live, and Pretenders and stuff like that. So I loved all that music. So when they came to me about doing the Blondie book, I also remembered that Chris Stein grew up in my neighborhood in Brooklyn. So I got on the phone with Chris, and we started talking, and then that's how I started putting the book together for them. Our section is only like 20 something pages, but it covers their relationship, like how they met, and how Debbie, when she grew up in New Jersey, and how she saw the world. It's kind of surreal and cool.
Awesome.
But you have to like the band. It's not for you. If you don't like Blondie, I would tell you, it's not for you.
All right. We will let all the Blondie fans know that that's out there for them. I wanted to return to another character that you already referenced from your event comic days, which is Ash. And I think I may know the answer, but you know, is there anything in the works for that character? And would he, considering he's on the Joe Quesada sort of side of things, would it really only happen if he's involved or wanted something to happen with that?
So I wouldn't do Ash without Joe.
Yeah.
Because we own 50-50 of the character. You know, we talked about it. I mean, Joe's been working for Marvel forever.
Yeah.
So it's just recently that he's not.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Joe's got his own plans with a bunch of things, and he's like me at some level. We talk about it because we've never sold the original art. We have all the art for all the books. Like we have them. We just decided we'll never sell it, which, you know, might make a good scan kind of big book of art one day. But we talk about Ash a lot. And, you know, we did a deal early on in our careers. It wasn't the best deal. We sold the rights to DreamWorks forever. Right? They own the rights to the movie and TV rights, not the comics. We can do comics. But Joe and I talk, and we're like, you know, to what end would we do Ash? Do we have any new stories? Which I have so many stories, it's not funny because that's my brain. But also he'd want to draw it, and he's not in a place to do that now. So out of respect to Joe, I just gotta sit on Ash, you know, and once in a while I go, oh, it'd be good if we just put Ash in Painkiller Jane somewhere. But we have to have those kind of conversations together. But it's not on his desk going forward. He's got a lot of stuff coming up. And it's not on mine, but it's always on my mind because I love the character. And it was one of our friends in the book, there's a character called Bobby Gallowitz that he recently passed away. He was a fireman and a great friend to me. And he passed away. He, you know, he was one of those people from the World Trade Center that got had the lung cancer, you know, all this stuff happened to him because of the World Trade. And him and his wife were suing the city. And right after his wife passed away from it, they settled on some terrible amount of money that sucked. And then Bobby, you know, lasted another 6 or 8 months because that throat cancer got him. But we modeled it after Bobby. You know, when we did Ash, we went to the firehouse with Bobby. We met the firemen. We got all these stories. We sat with them. We drank with them. And that's how we got a lot of the background for Ash as we were there. So if we did do something, it would definitely be a tribute to Bobby as well. Because, like I said, great guy. His career got cut short because he worked up in Harlem in New York. And there was a fire up there in a building. And it was an abandoned building, except it wasn't abandoned. There were people in it, and it was boarded off, and he couldn't get in. There were people in the middle of it, and the building was on fire. And he went through the roof. They broke down a door in the roof to go down to get the people. And these guys that sold drugs, what they did is they put fake stairs. They put balsa wood stairs. So when he went in, he actually fell a couple of stories straight down and broke his leg. And he wasn't a fireman after that. So he had to retire early. But if you read the Ash comic, there's a scene where Ash goes through and falls. We kind of took it from Bobby, and Bobby loved it. I mean, even at his funeral, they had the comics at his funeral a month ago. You know, they had the comics on display. Yeah. But yeah, so back to Ash. I mean, one day we'd both like to do it. We you know, Joe and I talk about, you know, Joe wants to change the origin a little bit, and I say the origin's great. So we kind of like, because we're both creatively in different places, it'll be a tough one. But I think one day it'll happen. And then for all those guys that held on to Ash #1 and put it in CGC, it'll probably be worth a couple of bucks more when that happens.
All right, makes sense. So I also wanted to, you know, talk about, we talked about last time, you know, your transition from primarily an inker to primarily a writer, and you know, stuck mostly with the writing. I know you still do a little inking on the side, but you know, as a writer now, as basically, you know, I think you're known more as a writer. Right. What attracts you to a character and project? What makes you want to slot in Painkiller Jane at this point, and then another project after that? Like, how does the projects come to you, or the stories come to you?
I have I travel a lot, and when I travel, I buy books about the places I'm going and I read them. And in these books of millions of stories, there's just so many great stories. And I'm working on one book right now about an ambulance driver in Italy, in Rome, right now. And it just because I was in Italy and I got inspired, and Amanda fell and broke her arm, and I was in an ambulance. And, it's just like you take these things from the real world and you say, how would I make something interesting from it? But ideas come, I have a lot of very vivid dreams. And like when I was writing Jonah Hex, a lot of the issues were based on dreams I had. And I don't know where they come from, because sometimes I'm so happy to wake up in the morning, because that dream was just, I had one last night that was just like, it was getting so out of control. I woke up, I was like, oh, thank God, that wasn't real. But there's always a good scene or two in it,
Yeah.
It's something that's like so abstract that how did I think of that? Because it's my subconscious, and I'm like, how did I even come up with that? That's so weird.
You write them down immediately?
What's that? Yeah, I
You
write
them down immediately, because that's always been my problem. I'll have a great dream or have some scenes, or I was like, I got to write that down, and you never do.
So do you have a phone near your bed? Do you keep your phone near your bed?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So email yourself. That's what I do.
So I'm scared if I do that, it's the middle of the night, that the light from the phone is going to wake me up. I'll never get back to sleep.
So put your light on your phone dull, like knock it down.
Yeah.
So when you do it, it doesn't wake you up startling. You can control the front of the phone. You can control.
Right. The
just do that. Just keep it on low. Don't always put it on bright. It's not good for your eyes anyway. But I email myself a lot. It's funny because I was Amanda and I are working on a book later this year, and I stumbled on an idea for it, and I was actually at the Statue of Liberty last week in Ellis Island, and the idea came to me, and I emailed it to myself because I knew I wouldn't remember it. But something in Ellis Island gave me the idea. I just and sent it off to myself. And I do have a lot of strange emails, but I know what they are. As soon as I see it, I know what it's about. And and it happens to me a couple of times a day. So I do have a lot of Post-its everywhere, right? And I was explaining to somebody yesterday that I have things I have to do, and I make them Post-its, and I put them all around I have a pretty big monitor. And as I do them, I take them, I crunkle them, and I throw them out when I'm done. Like I have to pay somebody this, or I have to call this dentist's office, whatever. I have them all there. I crumble them and throw them out. And my bag and my pail is full of them at the end of the day. And it's really satisfying. I don't get them all, right? But they don't leave there if I didn't do them yet. And it looks like a madman lives on my computer, but you'd be surprised how efficient it is. And I learned to do that early on because although I'm a good multitasker, a lot of times I need stuff right in front of me, because I have these ideas all the time. I'm like, what if I did this? And what if I revisited that character? Or, hey, I got to get the rights back to this. I got to write DC Comics and yell at them. And, there's always something going on. Or I got to get in touch with my lawyer or, whatever. And unless I write it down, I'm going to forget, or I get wrapped up in whatever I'm doing. So, so I like right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Post-its, 9 Post-its. One of them has to do our meeting at 8:00 today.
You can
so
satisfyingly crunch that one up and toss it in the basket.
We're doing that now. Some weird satisfying thing about it, who knows?
Yeah, it makes you feel accomplished. It works like
for me.
It's an even better version of having your list and crossing something off it. Because you have
with
physical evidence of having done something.
Right. The problem with the list is it's a one piece of paper and you cross it off.
Yeah.
And then the paper goes somewhere else, right?
Right.
Well, people use a computer program where they have it, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't
Not
even check it.
satisfying enough.
I can't avoid these colorful Post-its on my computer.
Right.
So anyway.
Another project of yours that I was hoping for some sort of update, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, it was actually a project of yours and Amanda's, which is the Pro.
Yeah.
And I know there've been some little hints and maybe of some movement there, but is there any kind of follow-up in the works?
So we did a 6-pager that was in the Image Comics celebration.
Oh, right, the 30th.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was in issue, I don't know, 5 or 6. I don't have a copy around here, but we did a 6-pager teasing at it. But we're writing the rest of the book. It's going to be another 48-page or 56,
Nice.
whatever it winds up being. We're going to be working on it. She's got 2 things in front of her. We have them lined up at the airport. You know, the planes are lined up to take off. The Pro is on there. We're gonna do a Pro book through Image, probably end of the year. It's just gonna be Amanda and I. Garth, Garth said that he doesn't have any more story to tell, so why don't you 2 guys just do it? And so, and it takes place 21 years after the original one came out.
Very
So
cool.
what has happened in 21 years, you'll
We
find
shall
out.
see.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I really
it-
like that. I really like that book. I got it when it first came out, and something that is certainly very unique and just really up your alley, and I think up a lot of other people's alleys. And
Yeah, it's a joy-filled romp
right,
that has a lot of heart,
yeah,
I
good way of
people
describing
saying, "Oh, it's about a prostitute." I said, "Yeah, but it's all female power in there. You just got to look past what you think you're seeing and look at what's going on, and there's a lot of empowerment in there." The new one is covering that, she died, supposedly, and that her kid now is 21, and what happens from there. And it's a little different than the original one. We're going to try to outgross the original one on some level. And
it's a tall order.
It's a tall order because Garth wrote a brilliant comic. So no matter what we do, we're kind of behind the 8 ball anyway, So we kind of know that. So we're going to try to do the best we can, and then let everybody else tell us we suck, or hey, that was fun, or whatever.
If you enjoy doing it, I'm sure it'll be worth
the artwork alone is going to look good. Amanda's gotten better since then, and so she's one of those artists that just keeps getting better. So the book's going to look stunning. That's my savior with the book. Plus, she's going to write it with me, so it's going to be really rude. She's a lot more crude than I am, Amanda.
Great. Well, crudeness on top of crudeness. I can't wait.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you this question because as I was looking through your biography, and we're sort of coming to a close here. You've worked for so many different publishers and so many different sort of entities, and even studios and things that you've created yourself. Is that part of a conscious approach to how you do things, or is that just part of like who you are, that you're always kind of on the move, looking for the new thing, finding different ways of interacting with this medium you love so much?
I am a very present person. I'm always looking at new technology. When NFTs came out, everyone saw all the negative stuff, right? And then I'm looking at them and I'm like going, look how much information they can hold. And how would I use this where it's not about these guys selling, these $1,000, $2,000 thing. How can I use this thing that may cost only $1 in reality? I mean, so I look at all new technology. I follow I was one of the first people using Kickstarters in comics, but I'm always looking at the new thing. I love technology, and I have a saying I tell everybody is like, the minute you start turning your back on technology is when you start getting old, But I constantly trying to figure out how to deliver the comics better, how to create them better. I just recently am coloring. I started coloring. I used the Procreate program, and I watched around 30 YouTube videos while I had the program open. And I did like if you look at the new book that Harley Quinn, the one that Frank Thierry wrote that just came out, where Harley's running and everybody's chasing her.
Yeah.
I colored that. I also colored the Painkiller Jane Ben Caldwell cover for my Kickstarter. And so, I tried the Procreate program, watched all these videos on how to color comics, and then I dug in, and it took me time, but I learned another skill I didn't know I had. But it's not on purpose. I think a lot of stuff comes into my lap. I never went out. I never set out to write commercials for Nike, for LeBron James and Vince Carter. I never set out to do that. They came into my lap, and I was like, yeah, I think I could do that. Even video games. The first game I did was the Punisher game, and they approached me. My first animated movie was Dead Space Downfall, and they approached me to write that. They asked me, would you be interested in writing like a prequel to the video game? So a lot of it just happened because I do have a reputation outside of comics of world building, of being able to look at somebody's product and go, okay, that's a great idea. Now let's create a world around it, and then let's create some other characters. I love doing that. The video games, it was fun doing that with a lot of games. And in the comics, like I'm converting GI Zombie, which I got back from DC. They gave me all the rights back. I'm converting it into vertical strip, so you can read it vertically on your phone, and I'll publish it. I don't know, Webtoons, one of those things, but I'll publish all of them that way, so you can read it like that in chapters. And I'm learning how to do it because I realize it's a cinematic thing, how you read it and how you pace it out. So I'm always trying to experiment, but I think there are creators that stick with one character and that's all they do. And that's all they do. And I'm not that guy. I revisit my characters, but I'm always, my next 2 or 3 Kickstarters are brand new thing. I think my next one is going to be a book called Fantasima. That's all done, by the way. It's a graphic novel. It's long. But it's a sort of like a female Tarzan. It happens in Chile, South America. And, I did my research on it, and, I'm expecting some people going, well, you're not from Chile. Why are you writing a character from Chile? But I always use the argument, I'm not a Western star. I'm not Harley Quinn. I'm not Painkiller Jane.
Right.
I'm not from another planet, but I can write these things. I can write Power Girl and not be a woman or a superhero. The world is kind of funny now because they want to like, oh, if you're this or that, you can't write that character. Well, yeah. I'm Italian, but nobody asked me to write Italian characters, so I don't know. But how if the world is so crazy right now, but they forget what we do is we're doing fantasy, we're creating things. So, right. I just do my research. If I'm, with Fantasima, I did a ton of reading on everything because I know somebody's going to come and call me on something, and I'm going to go, well, actually, you're wrong. This is how it is, actually. But Fantasima is my next one, and then that's it. That's going to probably be a hardcover. And then if you give me a second, I can tell you what I got coming after that, because I do my own mission statements for the year, and I hope to hit them, but most of the time I'm too aggressive with my mission statements. But I find it's good to have that.
It's amazing that you do them, and I applaud you for that. That sort of discipline of sort of goal setting, and then at least trying to hit them is.
Yeah, I never hit them. The one after that I'm doing is a thing called The Hunters, and it's with Chad Harden.
Cool.
And it's a Western. I got a couple of conventions coming up. We're going to be in Boston.
Wicked Con. I might be there.
All right. Well, you come over and say hi.
Yeah,
it's going to be a really good show because it's all comics.
I know. Has it been there before? I don't remember hearing about it.
So I think the guys that run it used to do the older Boston Con, right?
Yeah.
And then it got bought up by, you know, some big company that doesn't give a crap about comic people. And so now they're doing just a comic show.
Yeah, because I remember the show that used to happen here was some weird general pop culture kind of thing, and
Right.
I'm like, I don't kind of want to go to that.
So you live in Boston
I
area?
live south of Boston. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that one's coming up next month. I think it's 30 days from now.
Yeah,
The
the
Wicked Con.
22nd of April.
Yeah, and that is
22nd,
like
23rd.
it's like
Yeah.
me, Amanda, Dan Panosian, Dave Johnson, Adam Hughes is going to be there. There's a whole Sean Murphy, I think, is going to be there. There's like a great guest list. We love it because we get to hang out with each other at night, but you know, and pick on each other and have a good couple of drinks, and it's always good to catch up with my friends. But we also I love Boston, and you know, there's definitely some good eats over there. So we're really excited.
Sure.
You
Yeah,
know, the fans
yeah.
are great. The fans are great there because they remind me of everybody I grew up with in Brooklyn. They're all just rowdy and say what's on their mind. And I love that.
That's Boston. You know? So, you know,
when they're happy, they're
unfiltered.
Really happy. Yeah. No, unfiltered is fine. I think too many filters is too watered down is like, you know, there's no edge to it. You know, I like the edginess of the Boston people.
I hear you. Well, we got it. That's why it's called the Wicked Con.
That's right, Wicked.
So
yeah.
All right, excited for that. We will definitely send people toward you know, Amanda's book on Zestworld, and you know, people can follow you, of course, on all the socials, I'm pretty sure, and
just Instagram and Twitter are the only two.
Okay.
I do. Yeah,
Instagram and Twitter and Paperfilms, right? That's
Paperfilms.com.
the studio.
That's the website.
Amanda. Okay.
And welcome back. So, Mike, another home run, as I said at the top of the show. A great interview. Jimmy is really interesting to listen to. He's got great stories. He's done fantastic work. And just to, you know, anytime we have him on, I'll be there listening.
And did I hear him mention something about he and Dan DiDio being close friends? That might be a fun conversation for us to have with the both of them. So we'll have to see if that ever comes about.
Would love to have him back. Had a great time interviewing him. And yeah, let's throw Jimmy in with some other creators. I think there's going to be some sparks flying, some great stories that we may not hear otherwise. So would love to have him back. But again, guys, go out there, back the new Kickstarter project, which is Painkiller Jane, Beautiful Killers. Go to Kickstarter, check it out, and look for his other stuff. He's going to be doing more and more Kickstarters, so definitely follow him. And as you heard on this episode, he really he takes a fan first approach. So packages everything up, tries to get it all in mint condition, you know, so you're going to get a great package, and always delivers, very reliable. So all that being said, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you for listening. Thank you for viewing, and we'll see you next time.